Today, I want to talk about a study that was done 2 years ago. Maybe you've heard of this story, maybe you haven't heard of this story, but in 2018, the US government was allowed access into Kenya to do a study. And the study was about exploring gender identities of boys and men in Kenya. So the elite of Kenya allowed the Americans to come into Kenya to study the gender identities of boys and men in Kenya. Now, the context of this study, when you read the documentation about it, and you can see it online, and this wasn't widely reported in Kenya, as you very well know, because when they are selling out Kenya, usually they hide, but all things usually end up being exposed. So in this case, this study was about the Americans being concerned that Kenyan men were becoming too tough. I don't know what gave them that idea. And so they're spending money in Kenya, and I think the study is still ongoing. It's not like it has stopped. And they are seeking ways to undermine the masculinity of boys and men in Kenya. In other words, they want African boys and African men in Kenya to be more effeminate, to act more like women and less like men. That's the gist of it. So when they say that they are studying, they're not studying, they are promoting, okay? They're promoting gender, identity confusion, and homosexuality in order to turn the Kenyan men, who are already quite effeminate, as you very well know, into even being even more effeminate. Now, let's see why. So, according to the Americans, they are claiming that the Kenyan male ideals of masculinity are contributing to what they call terrorism. In other words, when Africans stand up for themselves or stand up in any way in a militaristic fashion, they immediately categorize that as terrorism. Because as an African man in Kenya, you are not meant to stand up. Okay? So in the system of the total foreign domination of Kenya, you are never meant to stand up. As a man, you're supposed to be on your knees. And they could see that in parts of Kenya, in the coast and other areas, they could see that more and more boys were beginning to seek military solutions to whatever grievances they had. Now, this was very scary to them because African men are not supposed to seek militaristic solutions to the problems that we have. And so that is what they're referring to as terrorism. As you very well know, we've had an issue in the coast of Kenya, and one of the issues that has been a security issue in the coast of Kenya is the people of the coast feel like they're marginalized. And as you probably remember, we used to have a movement saying that they wanted to split away from Kenya because they feel that they're being exploited, because they don't own any of the hotels along the coast. They don't benefit a lot from the tourism. Most of them live in slums and in, very low living standards. Yet they can see all these other people making money from their traditional homeland. And this grievance has been there for a long time. And previously, the people of the coast would just express their grievances by talking. But at some point, they began to take up arms, you remember. And they formed a political military organization that was seeking the quote-unquote independence of the coastal lands that used to be part of the Sultanate of Zanzibar. Now, that was defeated, but the feelings of the people never changed because they still don't control their economy. So this thing, it keeps on coming back up. Now, all this time, the Americans didn't care. Okay? They only started caring when this local grievance in the coast started linking with other transnational actors who are now giving them arms and training on how to launch, armed resistance. And at that point, the Mzungu had to intervene. Very simple. They had to intervene. Why? Because they can't have African men taking up arms to fight against the system in a critical country like Kenya, because Kenya is an anchor country for Western domination of East and Central Africa, because the Kenyan elite is very well known as the biggest sellout elite, I think, in Africa. And you may not know about the foreign policy of Kenya in history. If you knew what the things that the Kenya elite has done in the past, you would be shocked in terms of damaging other African countries. This is not about that, but just an example. Kenya was intimately involved in the overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah, and probably the Ghanaians don't even know that. They have no idea that Kenya was working very closely with the CIA and the British to coordinate and to monitor Kwame Nkrumah while they were planning the coup against him. So the Americans become very concerned when they see that young Africans in Kenya are beginning to believe that the only way out of their grievances is to take up arms. And there is enough transnational actors ready and willing to train them in the use of arms. So at that point, they intervened. And like this study says, they are working with an NGO. So you need to understand the role of NGOs in destabilizing Kenya and generally destabilizing Africa and trying to turn Africans into our worst forms. So anytime you hear that like there's a civil war breaking out somewhere, don't think it's a civil war. I want you to always know that there's someone behind what's going on. So in this case, they were spending all this money. They're spending about $600,000, which would be a lot of money in Kenya. I think that's almost 60 million. That's a lot of money. So they're seeking like an NGO, a local NGO controlled by them to do the study. But we all know that they are financing the homosexual groups and things of that nature. Now, so the study says or complains that Kenyan men are becoming more tough, more heterosexual, aggressive, and unemotional and achieving. And they're saying that when African men begin to see themselves as being tough, heterosexual, aggressive, and unemotional and achieving, it's a problem. That when men see themselves in that way, I'm a man, when they see themselves that way, with internal fortitude, they are more likely to take up arms to fight for what they think is their right. And so this has to be opposed, right? So what they want, the whole idea, what they want is to turn these men, turn the culture of toughness. First of all, stop that culture of seeing yourself as a man as being tough. Stop it. And they're associating toughness with being heterosexual. Do you see the connection that they're claiming? They're saying that being unemotional and aggressive and an achieving oriented person is also very heterosexual. So to undermine the aggressiveness, the achieving attitude, and the tough spirit of the men, you have to turn them from being heterosexual. You get it? So you have to promote homosexuality in order to turn the men into women. Literally. That's the point. That is literally the whole point. That's what they're trying to do. And this is just the monies that we know they're spending. What about all the secret programs that they are working in Kenya with the cooperation of our coconut elite that have sold out the country? This is what we know. What about what we don't know? This is what was exposed. What about what has not been exposed? So when you see them pushing the homosexual agenda, this is to weaken the men within the country, to sap the strength of the country from within, to drain you from within, to create a generation of weaklings. Why are they doing this? One of the reasons they're doing this is they're also concerned that the hold on the minds and the brains of the Africans by the European church is getting weaker. You see, because before the instrument of control was the church, because you as a grown man, you walk into church and you bow down and you worship the statue or the cartoon painting of a European that you've been told is God, right? And for a long time that worked very well in controlling Africans. It still does, because majority of Africans in Kenya do worship European pictures as God. So that still works. But over the last 10 to 20 years, the mental hold of the church over the brains of the Africans is getting looser. They are losing more control. And so Africans are beginning to have a new idea of who they are. And so that's a problem. You see, that's a problem. And so in order to defeat that, they're introducing homosexuality in order to weaken the men. That's why there's all this. That's why you had the American president the other day demanding that all African countries promote homosexuality. That's the point. Do you understand? That is the point. And homosexuality gives them many advantages, because if very widespread, it can also be used as an instrument of population control and reduction. So it's a multi-edged sword that they're wielding against Africans. So they were spending this money to promote homosexuality in order to weaken the men, to turn them more and more effeminate, to the point that you will not be able or willing to take up arms to defend yourself. And a classic example is this. Let me give you a very good example. You can see what's happening in Mozambique, and they're trying to cast it, as always, as an Islamic terrorism. They want to bring in the name Islam into that fight, and now they are calling the fighters in Mozambique Al-Shabaab. And the fighters in Mozambique don't call themselves Al-Shabaab. They're trying to claim that they're influenced by Islam, which is a false narrative. And of course, many people will fall for that. But the reality is this: huge oil and gas deposits were discovered outside a small town in northern Mozambique. Now, that small town, that entire area is extremely poor, very poor. And so the elite in Maputo immediately gave all the oil and the gas to the Europeans. That's how typically Africans do. When Africans discover something valuable, they hand it over to Mzungu, right? Immediately. So they hand over the entire oil and gas deposit to the Europeans through a company called Total from France. So Total begins the usual process of sucking all the wealth out of the area, sucking everything out. Now the locals are like, wait, the oil and the gas has been discovered on our land. And now you mean to tell me you will pump out all this oil and gas and leave us with nothing? Our own oil. So what did the people do? They took up arms. And what did what's the first thing they did? They went to the oil and gas companies and attacked. That's what happened. They immediately attacked Total. Because this is a war of the locals claiming their oil and their gas. But now the Western media has moved in very quickly to portray them as terrorists in order to get all the Africans against the villagers who are fighting for their own resources. And now they are trying to recruit Zimbabwe and a few other countries to send their soldiers to kill the villagers so that the Europeans can pump out all the oil and gas. Think how perverse that is. See, do you see how they play us like little children? So you'll find Africans killing Africans so that Mzungu can take off with all the oil and gas. This is how the game goes, because they know, Africans are not particularly famous for their intellectual prowess. So they know that. So it's very easy to play with Africans. Very easy. It's just too easy. It's shocking. So that's what is going on also in Kenya. It is the same process that is going on in Kenya. And so what this study shows, that the solution that they have come up with in order to prevent African men turning to arms to fight now for the resources, the actual resources, the actual wealth of the land, the only way that they are proposing to resolve that is to turn men into women. Values that are feminine, that do not include aggression or fighting. Just let the Mzungu pump out the oil in peace and you go back to your slum. So you will see, if you monitor the situation in Mozambique, you will see there'll be many homosexual NGOs opening up shop there in order to kill those values that tells a man that I have to fight for my wealth. So they want all of us to be like women. So that's the function of this study. And that's where they're putting their money in Africa. And the elite of Kenya is allowing them to do this unchecked, because it is them, I think, who even proposed that Kenya can be used like this. That's why you're seeing Americans being able to operate openly, pushing that kind of an agenda. And you will never hear the Kenyan media talk about it, and you'll never hear the government talking about it, because they're sellouts. They've sold us out. And when you look at some of the language that they're using in their report, I mean, it's very telling. I mean, it's so open. It shows you the level of contempt they have for us. And it's well-deserved contempt, because they're saying, in the article, they're saying that in Kenya, there currently exists no CVE programming. Listen to the language. That in Kenya, there currently exists no CVE programming. CVE stands for Countering Violent Extremism. But our concern is the use of the word programming. Programming dedicated to the role of gender in boys and men. Listen to what they're saying. Programming, they want programming dedicated to the role of gender, to changing the role of gender in boys and men. This is what the government is allowing them to do. To start programs dedicated to changing the role of gender in boys and men. And they are saying that they will start these programs, and listen to this, and the programming will be awarded, or rather the task will be awarded to an American NGO. That's how we are sold out. And they're speaking openly the way they will program our boys and men to become women. So you will see more garbage on TV. You will see them introduce that garbage in the school system. And it is your government that is allowing them to do this. Do not be deceived when you hear the politicians say that they are opposed to this sort of gender confusion programs. Outwardly, they claim that they're opposed to homosexuality. But on the inside, they are allowing the Mzungu to come in and execute his plan in order to weaken us further. So at some point, you need to open up your eyes and understand that when you see things happening in a country, they don't happen without the government knowing it. When you see it happen inside the country, I assure you it is the government doing it. Never be deceived that they were caught unawares. No, 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 no. It is them who are involved in assisting the Americans to push the homosexual agenda with the political and military goal of weakening the men so that they never, ever, ever consider taking up arms to fight for the wealth of the country. It's about money. Never ever forget that. It's about money. It's about who is becoming rich and who is staying in the slums. It is always a money fight. Never get caught up with the emotions of anything. It's about money. People need to make money. All the mines in Kenya are owned by foreigners. Every single mine in Kenya are owned by foreigners. And the men in Kenya sit back and do nothing. They go straight back to their slum, to their poverty, to their hawking, and they don't say anything, while all the wealth is carried off away. You remember the story of that village where the government handed them the gold mine. It was somewhere in Kakamega. You remember that story? Like, was it last year? In 2020. So the government hands over a mine, a gold mine, to the Chinese. I want you to think about that. Your own government hands over a gold mine to the Chinese. Now, and that is someone's shamba. Let's make that very clear. It is someone's shamba. And the government gives that shamba to the Chinese to dig up the gold. Did you see what the villagers did? They immediately attacked the Chinese. Do you remember that? Immediately. They had the good sense to attack the Chinese. Because the country has been sold out, right? So that response of attacking the Chinese is what they are trying to undermine. They want the African man to go back the way he's always been. Docile, weak, a coward, acting against his best interests. All the politicians are like that. Okay? They always act against our best interest. So that's how come they gave the gold mine to the Chinese. But the villagers fought back. Now this program is supposed to counter that response from the villagers. They are not supposed to fight back. They are supposed to move away and let the foreigner dig up the gold and disappear off with it while they remain in their slum. So this is how they program African men to become weak. And it's time for you guys to grow up and understand how the real world works. It is always about money. Never forget, it's about money. It's not about human rights. It's not about homosexual rights. It's about money. Someone is trying to make money, and they will do anything to make that money. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Kenya's time has come. Our time has come. Your time has come. A time to succeed and not fail. A time to grow wealth and not poverty. A time to go up and not down. It's time for you to stop walking and drive your car. Stop renting and buy yourself a house. It's your time to get blessed. Join the ChaChaVi movement and together let us kick poverty and unemployment out of Kenya. Become a member today. Donate what you can. And remember that the ChaChaVi is the only political organization in Kenya that is squarely built upon Christian values, unlike the rest. We'll see you next time. Thank you.